she will allow him to strike, but only once. MC looked at her with a serious expression and thought that her aura had changed beyond belief. All the killing energy emitted by Asul's ghost strike had now merged with the aura of Ching Chang's sword. It's strange. He feels like he's looking at a demon who's dressed as a beautiful angel. However, if he's the one being offered the first strike, why not accept? He ran towards her and thought that with one strike, he could take control of the battle. He missed with the first strike, and Kyun said that his storm that he used to defeat Yuch-chan was now much stronger. She abruptly slashed with her sword, which he dodged, and she said that however it was too obvious. She began to slash quickly with her sword and said that the movements of the storm dance were too wide. When he faced someone stronger, he needed to be careful. Hestepped her for her advice, and thought that the explosive speed of the storm dance, mixed with the short and precise arts of the Tan clan, created a killer technique. However, it only worked against equal opponents. Against a stronger opponent, it would be risky. Then he needs to use a technique suitable for multiple attacks. Strikes of the fierce tiger, and combine it with the storm dance. Kun looked at him and asked, did he also learn strikes of the fierce tiger? We ran up to her very quickly and started to attack, and thought that the strength of the storm dance was in its speed. He could use the momentum to speed up the rotations used in the strikes of a fierce tiger. Tujin happily slashed with her sword, but he jumped up, and she missed. He somersaulted very quickly, and was about to attack her with his foot. She dodged the strike, but he ran after her and thought that he needed to be even faster. She asked, did she understand that he was trying to maintain the flow of his attacks? But by giving the opponent distance, shouldn't he expect a counterattack? She began to throw many quick strikes and use King Chang's sword technique, an incredibly fast blade. He got into a blocking stance and used his hands to block her strikes. He stared at her and thought, was he too hasty in his attack? This was his chance to break through. She was surprised because he dodged her attack and ran towards her. She continued to slash her sword with a wide smile and said that this is what she understood. This is what makes a fight worthwhile. They continued Tazlish quickly, and she said that he should continue to entertain her. The crowd of spectators cheered as they fought, but one of them turned around and looked back. Yukon recovered from his defeat and asked, what was going on? The man who noticed him asked loudly, has the young master recovered? He stood up, looked at the arena, and asked, not only did this freak knock him out, but he is now fighting on equal terms with his sister. Mother hasn't returned. His servant said that she hasn't returned yet. He thought that his sister would definitely lose, but the longer this dragged on, the higher this freak's position would rise. One of the spectators next to him said loudly, in a surprised voice, that the young master still didn't give up. He thought with a worried look that it was impossible, but he couldn't let his sister lose. They continued to fight at this time, and the protagonist thought that he had created an opening. Now he needed to continue the offensive. Unexpectedly for him, Quinn kneed him in the chin and asked, is he too focused on the sword? Isn't he? Thought with a serious expression. Is she attacking without a weapon? This flow is different from the Xing Cheng style. She looked at him with a wide smile and asked, is he surprised by this? Right? She learning the Ching Chang techniques. Now, but years ago, she was studying the arts of the Tongkla. He continued Totak and thought that Ching Chang's straight sword and the Tongklan's 100 strikes method that aimed to expose the enemy's weaknesses. These two opposing martial arts perfectly merged and were used in an attack. This was the power of Fozel's ghost strike. He tried to kick her, but she used Shadow Step to appear behind him and delivered a surprise word strike. He managed to dodge this attack and jumped to the side. He was breathing heavily due to fatigue, unthought that he could taste bile, and with every beat of his heart, his body was becoming more and more numb. Now he understood what it was like to fight using martial arts. She looked at him with a calm expression and said that he was indeed different. His attacks were not like the standard ones like other beginners. However, in reading the inimmune dodging, he was like an experienced warrior who had fought in hundreds of battles. He laughed because of this unthought that he understood the basic movements. His past life, when he had no fighting energy, reading his opponent and predicting their moves. This was his main fighting style, developed from the desire to survive, because he was against martial artists who were capable of killing in one move. However, having martial arts, he forgot one important thing. When he uses mystic arts, he does not use it strictly according to the rules, and martial arts are no exception. Kyun looked at him with a wide smile and asked why he started smiling. He has such a beautiful smile. It seems like he has something in mind. She started to attack and said loudly that she wonders what her dear brother will do now. Shuan's to find out quickly. Mick put his hand in front of him and thought that she was not aiming for vital organs. The principle of Azul's phantom strike is to drag out the fight. Combined with her concern for him, it led to the appearance of weakness. He is grateful for the good intentions, but he has no reason not to use it against her. He used the technique strikes of the fierce tiger, ripping tiger claw. Hyujin was pushed back by this attack, and Shiseido, with a slightly worried look, that it was not bad, but he was repeating himself. She was surprised when she felt wind currents and thought that the wind deflected by the strike was circulating in front of him, restricting her movements. He learned to use the height of the storm in such a short time. She noticed that he swung his fist filled with a large amount of energy and thought that it was dangerous. He struck very hard and released this huge amount of energy. What happened really surprised all the people watching this fight. Wui stopped in the arena and raised his head with a serious, not only because the young master was much stronger than they expected, but also because of the glimmer of light that was just now. He called his sister with a serious expression and asked, "Is this fair?" Jun stood in front of him in a cloud of dust and asked, "Did he see it?" She wanted to hide it until she figured out this trump card. She pointed her sword at him with a smile, laughed, and said that, however, since he noticed, it can no longer be hidden. She released her energy, and the surprised spectators loudly said that this was Sword She. She had already entered the early peak. No wonder she was the heir of the 9 dragons. Yuch was very happy about this, started laughing loudly, and said that she was good. Her brother had always believed in her. He thought that this idiot had no chance of winning. She said with a crazy smile that he probably already understood that, since she had started using Sword Ji, she could not let the fight drag on. The protagonist agreed with a calm expression, and said that dragging out a fight with someone weaker than her would be considered extremely impolite. She said that she was very sorry. She wanted to enjoy the fight even more, and see what he was hiding. He looked at her with a serious expression, and thought that as she said, the fight would end in the next moments. His early windsword seal, that had blocked her blade until now, could not block Ching Cheng's sword entwined with chi since he could not use his mist carts. He only had one option. She looked at him with a happy expression, and said that it seemed like he had come up with something. He looked at her, and asked if she really thought so. She agreed and said that she could feel it. His heart was beating incredibly fast. He said with a small smile that he was probably a little excited. In such a situation, only a man obsessed with martial arts could. She didn't understand him, and asked what he meant. Only those who are crazy about martial arts can call themselves real fighters. MC was a little surprised by this, and said with Asmal's smile that he understood her. He was a fighter, after all. He thought that after being reborn in this body, he was too focused on mastering martial arts faster. But the life of a fighter he envied is not like that. The emotions he felt while fighting her. How will he be able to express everything he has learned so far? How well will martial arts work on his opponent, the excitement and fighting spirit, which is exactly why he wanted to become a fighter, to feel all this. Hyujin asked with a smile, "Can they continue their fight?" Judging from his breathing, he was fine. He agreed with a calm expression, and said that she could continue. Immediately after that, they ran towards each other very quickly. She immediately raised her sword above her head, and looked at him with a wide smile. We began to concentrate energy in his hand and thought that as expected, she was aiming to finish everything with one blow. That meant Hugh would have to use his most powerful attack in the form of Storm Dance. He would combine it with spectral energy and then compress it. He used the Storm Dance, Thunderwind, Cannon Shot techniques. They attacked each other at the same time, putting a large amount of energy into their strikes. He felt a strong pressure, and wondered, isn't this enough to fight an early peak-level martial artist? He shouldn't think about all sorts of nonsense. Either his plan would work, or it wouldn't. Their attacks caused a very strong gust of wind to rise up. Yuch looked at Thurna with a wide smile, and said that it was disappointing that the gap between him and his sister had widened, but that Freke wouldn't be able to get up after such a blow. He noticed a glow that could be seen through the smoke, and doubts began to form. The protagonist continued to emit strong dark energy, and thought that he had been waiting for this moment. The second, during which Theki left her sword, the moment during which it turned into an ordinary sword. He was able to break her sword into many pieces. Looked at his trembling hand, and thought that he couldn't even move his hand. Usually you can win by simply breaking the swordsman's weapon. But that's not the end. She, the owner of the ghostly Flow Azul, will never stop because of such nonsense. Of course, this also applies to him. Hujin got in Toa fighting stance, and he immediately jumped towards her, concentrating dark energy around himself. He thought Thath would put all his remaining energy into this one strike. He used the technique of Storm Dance, Thunderwind, Cannon Shot. She started laughing loudly with a big smile and said that he was really the best. She also started concentrating energy around herself to attack and use the technique of Rising Dragon method. Rising Dragon strike waterfall, hiding in the rising sun. Tonj said loudly, with a worried look, that they were getting too carried away. Jin was also worried about what was happening and said loudly that they would both get seriously injured. They were about to stop them, but they noticed something and stopped with painted faces. They were both about to attack each other, but someone came between them and said that it seemed like the two of them had played enough. They both stopped, using their energy, and the man who stopped them asked if they were going to meet the clan head in the hospital bed. Hujin immediately bed and said that she welcomed the head of the 9 dragons. MC looked at him and thought, so, this man is Thelador of the 9 dragons, and his father, Tannhausen. He also bowed and greeted him. Ghosts appeared next to Hymund, recognized him and said that he should be careful. He thought that after the decline of the storm, he would stop cultivating, but he had become much stronger. He turned around with a serious expression, and thought that Noah understood, even if this organization was strong. They were still a small, special squad of the Tan clan. It seemed to him that the squad leader would be about as strong as an elder in the heavenly demon sect. However, this man was so strong that he couldn't even guarantee victory against him in his past life. Gusan looked at him and asked, is he dissatisfied with something? Does he have something to say to him? When we started shaking his head in denial and wondered, was he really staring at him that hard? He looked to the other side and said that he was just wondering what he was doing here. He asked with a calm expression if there was a place in the 9 dragons that he couldn't enter. He said calmly that he was just worried that seeing him with such a weak martial arts skills would offend him. What he said shocked the Devirian present, and he felt it. Hujin, like everyone else, was very worried about it, and quietly asked him to stop. He thought it was a reasonable reaction to such a response from the leader, especially from an illegitimate child, who basically means nothing. However, after seeing the residual memories of the body, he realized that his father was a man with a capital letter. Busan smiled because of this, turned around, agreed, and said that he did not feel anything while watching his fight. The protagonist looked at him with a slightly dissatisfied look, and thought that these were the words of his real father. He stopped and said that anyway. He heard that he had changed a little. It turned out even better than he expected. He looked at Yuch Chang, who was standing next to the arena, and said that however was disappointed with someone else. He called Gong Jin and Tongt, who immediately jumped down and knelt in front of him. He said that they were too slow to react, so they needed to continue to work on themselves. They agreed with him, and he said that they should disperse and take care of the others. Ha looked at his sister, who was standing next to him, and asked why she looked so depressed. Kian said that she felt like they weren't good enough to gain their father's recognition. She looked at him and asked him what he thought about it. He said with a calm expression that this was how he was. However, the father suddenly became interested in the child he had always ignored. At the same time, he easily turned away from his son, who did not live up to his expectations. She apologized and said that she shouldn't have asked that. MC didn't care about it and asked if she was hungry by any chance. How about having a drink, since Ithi finished the duel? After a while, she drank from a small cup and said loudly with a happy expression that this was the real life. He looked at her with a small smile and said that she felt like she'd been starving for several days. They don't feed her in Chingchong, she said with a dissatisfied expression, that they feed her quite a lot, but only vegetables. She's growing now, so she should eat meat and also drink whatever she wants. That's what she doesn't like about Taoists. He understands her, right? He agreed and said that she could have another glass. She handed him the cup and he poured her some liquid from the bottle. He looked at her with a small grin and asked, "By the way, what kind of person is her senior training brother?" She became embarrassed because of this and a skedwi. He suddenly asked about this. He asked with a sly grin. She mentioned him several times in the letters. How can Hennet be curious? He began to list what she wrote, which embarrassed her even more, and she loudly asked him to stop. Wui did not listen to her, and said that she did not mention that he was going to visit the head. Now he needs to know more about him, because they will have to meet, don't you think? Hujin said with a displeased look that he was infected with the bad energy of the Tun clan. He calmed down and thought that the fact that Lai Chan, a disciple of the King-changing sect, was coming was out of caution. On top of that, the reason for the Dark Overlord's visit was that Thederic Overlord was rumored to be trying to create another special force like the Storm. If this was true, all the Sexan clans in Sichuan would try to do something about it. The same goes for the Qingchang sect, which the Tongklan has close ties with. They probably sent him here because they can't blindly trust her. Or maybe it's something more important than they think. He noticed someone, waved his hand, and said that they were here. Hujin turned around and asked, "Is this the friend he was going to invite?" She was very surprised when she noticed Gong Hu said that he should have been gentler in the training hall. They took a long time to clean up after him. He was surprised that she was a Blado, manifest a sword aura. She immediately bowed to him, called him uncle, and thanked him. She worried Lycled out to the protagonist quietly and asked why he didn't tell her he was coming. He also said with a wide smile that she didn't ask him about that. She worriedly put down a chair and said that he could sit here. He thanked her, sat in the chair, and said that they obviously ordered a lot of food. He hoped that all of this wouldn't be at his expense. They hid their glasses, and he said that he should try something like that. He calmly asked, did he hit his head somewhere? She was very surprised by this, and cautiously asked quietly why he was acting so informally with him. Doesn't he know what kind of person he is? He was basically his father's martial brother. His uncle saved him from danger during the battle of Qing and even received an honorary title from the clan leader. He was surprised by what he heard and called him uncle in a worried voice. Gong looked at him and asked if something had happened to him. He bowed to him and said loudly that he didn't know about his relationship with his father and was very rude. He apologizes to him for that. Hujin quietly praised him with a small smile and said that she was sure he would understand if he apologized properly. He was very disappointed by that and turned to Herond, said loudly with a displeased look that they had ruined his entire appetite. Did she make him do that? Mick sat down in his seat and asked what he thought of the old storm troop, the righteous wind troop. He took his hand with a smile and asked what he thought he would give them. He held out an empty cup to him with a big smile and said it was A. He poured him some from the bottle with a disappointed expression and said he guessed right. It wasn't interesting at all. She offered him a drink, and he watched from the side and thought that through this fight he had the attention of the old storm squad. Now the next problem appeared. It was unknown what Siang was going to do before the Dark Lord arrived. At the same time, the spider was sitting on a carriage that was traveling in the mountains, and said that he did not think it would be so far. If they went too far, he might kill them, thinking that they had escaped. The carriage stopped, and he asked, have they arrived? Sun got out of the carriage and said that they came without warning. I wonder if the temple master will be there. The spider jumped off the carriage and said that the sorcerer who poisoned the young master probably lives here. He senses a strong dark energy. Who is he really? A hooded girl came out of the temple gate and told the Namong follower that she was grateful for coming. The temple master told her to meet her. Sayong looked at her and asked how he knew she had arrived. His insight impressed her. The girl took off her hood and said that he was waiting inside. She should go there.